Welcome to the Consummate Athlete Podcast, where we explore what it means to be a well-rounded, happy, goal-crushing athlete. Every week, myself, sports journalist Molly Herford, and cycling coach and kinesiologist Peter Glassford interview experts and chat through all of your training questions. We're excited to have you along for the ride. Hello. Welcome back to the Consummate Athlete Podcast. Peter, how's it going?
It's going well. We're rolling along. Definitely been a hectic new year, and I think everyone who's reached out for phone consults and training plans and some coaching stuff, and it's been busy. A webinar in there as well with the cycling club as well for winter training. So it's been fantastic, but a little faster on the ramp up. But I'm not complaining. All work is good, I guess. So yeah, how about you? I hear you have a book coming out here today, maybe.
Yeah, so as of the release of this podcast, The Mirror Diaries Finding Grace by researcher and former collegiate athlete Vanessa Kuhlbeck will be on shelves along with the accompanying workbook Beyond the Mirror. And this is a great book for any middle grade or young women. So middle grade girls, like basically over fourth graders, pretty much. It's a fantastic book for any girls that are just kind of struggling a little bit with whether it's confidence, self-compassion, body image. This is a fantastic book by a woman who has spent her career doing the research in that space. So not only is it like a really fun book to read, it's also research backed. There's a bunch of exercises in it.
Fictional that like has like non-fictional elements to it? Is that the... That
is exactly right.
Okay. So it is like a story. So you could give it to a young person and it's not like they're necessarily reading a textbook.
That's exactly the point, because a lot of people have tried to do these kind of like non-fiction books for kids about confidence and that kind of thing. But often those books just don't really land because kids just don't really want to read them.
Yeah, they were like psychology books. Yeah. Are boring. I mean, I like the concept.
Well, and I think as adults, we can read them and enjoy them. But as kids, we kind of need stuff wrapped up for us where you're seeing it play out for someone else. And that's how you can actually really learn to understand it. So yeah, highly recommend. Check it out at stronggirlpublishing.com. We also had a book club with Shred Girls, the third book, Jen's Bumpy Ride, where we were joined by two-time mountain bike world champion Kate Courtney for a virtual book club.
Yeah.
So lots of cool stuff happening at Strong Girl Publishing. So if you're not signed up for our newsletter, definitely get on that and don't miss any of these opportunities.
Okay, that's pretty awesome. I know that was a lot of people's highlight of their week was seeing Kate Courtney and yourself. I heard you had a couple fans and people who really liked your books, large Shred Girls fans.
Yeah, that was very fun. So I had the best time with that. And also, I realize this is probably not most of our listeners, but if anyone is interested in writing their own book, I'm actually starting a 8-week storytelling for athletes course with my friend, developmental editor at Forward Motion Writing, Carolyn Wellen. You can find out more information about that also at stronggirlpublishing.com.
Okay, I'll try and find those for the show notes as well. If people want to just look in their podcast player, they can probably find that, depending on how well I do that. Okay, so today we have Tim Plunkett on, and I interviewed Tim. This is his return.
Back on the podcast.
This is a return, and he actually was on not too long ago, but the episode, people liked it. We've had a bunch of athletes in and around the GTA, Toronto, up to where we are up in Collingwood, go down and see Tim. He's in Guelph at Speed River. And I say that's where I bought probably my first real mountain bike, a Schwinn Moab, 1999. And that bike has floated around and I think still is like around. Someone is jumping it somewhere in a farm field somewhere. But was a fantastic bike. And that's sort of, I just stayed in touch with them over the years. And they have done training plans and they've done things and we've sort of gone back and forth, but it's pretty neat that they now have this awesome fit studio, which includes Tim is part of that fit studio, and just a really grounded person with all the stuff needed. They have the person who knows what they're doing. They have the fit equipment. And then they also have the bike shop ready with great Trek products, which I will say that we talk a lot about Trek products, but we do talk about other stuff and just general concepts. But you will get your share of Trek branded content in this episode.
Well, and I think this one is important to have at this time of year when pretty much everyone is just indoors most of the time. You're on the trainer. And if there was ever a time to have a dialed in bike fit, it is when you are spending time on the trainer.
And Tim and I actually came to this realization together was for young athletes, but I would say for a lot of adult athletes, we're actually tipping into a time where esports or indoor cycling is actually the main discipline for a lot of athletes. And I sort of like slapped my head, I guess physically or literally, or I don't know what I did. But I just was sort of clicked for me that I think this is true or close to true for a lot of people. And so this to me makes the argument for a BikeFit way more. Previously, I don't know if I talked about it in the episode, but that Schwinn Moab and I rode for 3 years. It was the only bike I owned. Quite variable. We would be dropping the seat to do trials, and North Shore was really popular back then, riding on skinnies and whatnot. So the fit just wouldn't have mattered. The concept, I was also 14, 15, so anything would work. But now these same athletes, 14, 15-year-olds, are spending hours on the trainer in some cases, going to trips. And that was really what motivated Tim to reach out and say, were we interested in an episode? Because he's seen a lot of people who are normalizing numbness. And that was really the main gist of this thing, was to try and say, no, you shouldn't be uncomfortable. There is a better way. There's a lot of products. And there is this concept of bike fitting and position that can really make your cycling more comfortable, which is going to keep you in cycling. And if you are looking at performance, certainly you're going to be happier and performing well.
Love it. Love it. And before we get into that interview with Tim, quick shout out to our sponsor at Payable. So Payable Apps is the only way to take a payment within a Google form. And you can find all of our favorite templates and get some great deals over at payableapps.com/athlete. All right. Without further ado, enjoy this episode with Tim Plunkett, and definitely hit us up if you have any more bike fit questions at the end.
All right, we're back. Consummate Athlete Podcast. We're here with Tim Plunkett from Speed River Bicycle. He is a bike fitter, the person I send many athletes to. Tim, thank you for coming back, and thank you for all your work with my athletes, getting them comfortable so they can perform on their bikes.
No problem. Glad to help.
Yeah, so you reached out just ahead of the holidays, and I said, after the holidays, let's talk about this. And you said you've been just seeing a lot of numbness, which doesn't strike me as uncommon with a bike fitter, but you said that there's sort of like this prevalence of people like accepting numbness and dealing with numbness for like a long time, which is a bit more concerning. And you felt like this has like implications for our young athletes, this has implications for performance, and then certainly just keeping people in bicycling, which both of us are concerned with, keeping people in bicycling long term. So I said, let's talk about this. So maybe just can you lay out like what you're seeing, whether that's with like a sort of an example athlete you've dealt with, or just like what do you mean by there's like a prevalence of numbness and saddle health issues in cycling?
I mean, it's I guess you could argue our main interface, our pelvis rests on the saddle. And you think about how you get a bike, you go to the bike shop, which I'm in a bike shop, right? You get sized in some manner. You do a little test, and you're sent out. And if you get a drop bar bike, often you then find a group of ridiculous individuals who are then like, hey, let's go for a 3-hour ride, right? And you've maybe gone for like 30 minutes. And you go on this ride. No one's given you technique. No one's discussed anything. You're just basically loosely set up, to drink and eat maybe. And, a couple hours in, you recognize that you have, certain discomforts. And what I typically see is that this group of riders will be like, that's part of the cycling. You'll get used to it. You'll break it in. It's all part of it. And over the time, from concours and rolls and all these wonderful dome-shaped saddles, older cyclists have just realized that they think it's part of the game. So your peer group is often like, well, it's just part of it. You'll get used to it. And then you don't get used to it.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of like wrestling. I was just reading a book that had wrestling in it, and they're talking about the cauliflower ears, where it's just normal. And so the one character, this is a fictional book, but the character's mother was a nurse and would like drain the ears and try and like, so they didn't have these ears that were all massacred. So I wonder if we're doing this, but it's not quite our ears. It's like a more sensitive part of our bodies, maybe not as, on display all the time, but an important
part. Not on display, but arguably more important. Yeah. Like, unless you can't hear through your cauliflower ear, which is then
right.
But it's yeah.
Okay, so I think that's the other story it reminds me of is Molly's book Saddle Sore, which I don't know how old that book is now, but 12 years, still great, some great content. And one of the stories was a fairly high level track cyclist, I believe, and it was just the routine that they would drive home from the track with like an ice pack on their area, their genitals, I guess, essentially. And this was just normal, day to day to day to day. And I think that like probably encapsulates sort of what you're seeing, where it's just we've accepted it. We have a Band-Aid solution, I guess you could call that. but we're not really dealing with like, why does this happen every single day? Like, and the ultimate question I think is like, is there a saddle or a setup, a BikeFit that would say this isn't something you have to do every day?
Yeah, I mean, if we look at, so I mean, let's go from, arguably a more relaxed position to the most aggressive, right? So if we say like mountain bike, you have, more open hip angle, slightly more upright torso. Arguably, you could be back rotated onto your tuberosities, your sit bones a little bit more. So if that's like the least demanding position, yeah, I would say there's a position and a saddle that like really shouldn't have numbness, right? It just should not be a thing. Also, with mountain biking, you're up and you're down and you're moving. It's like okay, and then we move to like road. Again, I would go with there is a saddle out there, and there is a position that respects what your body's going to give you at that day. You should not have it. When we get to pursuit positions, there's always going to be a trade-off.
Just because the person's working like so hard, they're like so aero, they're so
well, aero is everything now, right? That's all anyone cares about. And
so this is like one of an aggressive track discipline you're saying, where it's just they're so low and working so hard that they're just going to be sitting on the nose of the saddle, basically.
Now, arguably with a fixed bike, fixed gear, you will be actually elevating as you're pushing, and you with Watt Shop and all these wonderful aero bars, you will be able to put more weight onto your arms and forward weight to a certain amount to like alleviate that. And it's like, what, 4 to 6 minutes, right? Okay.
It is short. Yeah. And it does resolve. I was just going through a bunch of like urology stuff where they were looking at, the like classic CNN headline where it's like bicycling causes impotence or like all these, and they were saying that's not really a concern. And especially in that like super short duration, I can't see it being like a long-term damage thing, but you could see someone who does a couple hours of practice really hard, again, being in this ice pack situation just from impact, basically.
Yeah. So the saddle pressure mapping is really useful. I mean, it's just a tool. It's not the world's greatest thing or anything. It's just a tool like anything. But what we see is it doesn't unload, right? So if I can get you, I like to have people have the opportunity to sit sort of on the wings of the saddle, right? Back to the rear of the saddle. Because what ends up happening is each side unloads for a fraction of a second each pedal stroke. So tissue unloads, blood perfuses in, tissue compresses, blood comes out, right? And it's constantly flowing and moving. So theoretically, even if you have compression of the soft tissue in some way, if it's rocking side to side, it unloads and loads. It unloads and loads. It's the constant grinding pressure that never gives a chance to unload. That is the one I'm most concerned about.
I see. And as, I guess as a kinesiologist, like I'm seeing, like that's very common. Like that's why people pass out when they stand up for a long time in the heat. Because their calf muscles aren't acting as like a muscular pump where there's like the blood's getting pumped back up. So this is similar. You're saying that like some of these older saddles, especially, you had some names there, I think, of these saddles.
Concord, stuff like
the Concord was really popular, but it sort of had like it would almost be, how did you describe it? It's like curved upwards into your soft bits, where it would basically occlude the vessel or always be pressing against your soft tissue, and then there isn't a break. There isn't a place where that, I guess, pump essentially, or back and forth, like open close at least, could happen, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure like all I'm seeing is pressures in millibars, right? So it's like, I mean, blood and nerve impulses still flow because, I mean, you didn't fall over and pass out, your legs didn't fall off, but it's reduced, it's occluded, right? It's suboptimal. Let's put it that way.
So this is something that's interesting. So if I had, say I love the Concord, but I'm also having like pretty bad, it's keeping me from riding the trainer for more than 45 minutes and it's starting to be an issue. I'm getting older. I've been using my Concord forever for the last 25 years of biking. This is a fake story, but, and so could I come
but
to see?
It's very real. It's a very real story.
Could I come and see you with my Concord and my bike, and you could put me up on the Fit Studio and then show me on the pressure mat that my Concord is like doing this, and then you could show me on one of these new 3D printed Bontrager Trek saddles that maybe it's better perhaps for me to use one of these more aggressive saddles because I'm a very aggressive rider.
Yeah, it's like I look at any of the tools we use, like say it's video or pressure mapping or whatever. They're just a teaching implement. I mean, I've been doing this, I don't know, 2008, I think I started. I can see when you're sitting on a saddle, how you're going to be sitting on a saddle. And I've seen enough saddles to know what it will end up looking like. But what I want is to educate the client so they can make changes for themselves.
Well, and you may have to convince me to rip that Concord out of my dead hand, right? If I'm one of these Concord lovers, because I know a couple. I know a couple of people in the Trek world who may have pre-bought like 10 Concords because
or it was the Bontrager Serrano. That was the original.
Probably.
Yeah,
I think
Serrano
you're exactly right.
Yeah, it was the version of the Concord, or it's like.
Hey, you can't say that, but yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, and I mean, there are people who I'm not here. I mean, go back 10 years, and I think I was more prone, and when I was younger, to just be like, that's wrong. And it's like, okay, well, there's a cost, right? There's a cost to doing this. And if we dig down deep enough, we're probably going to find that, like you said, okay, it's a 45-minute trainer session. So say you're prescribing your athlete an hour and 15 minutes with intervals in this. And they're like, oh, Peter, yeah, I love this saddle. It's nothing to do with the saddle. But, right around 45 minutes, my hands hurt too much. I get tingling in my left leg, and I just can't stay on the trainer anymore. And it's just like you start to join the dots. You're like, well, hey, look, you're sitting on your soft tissue. Oh, you also complain of, say you're going up seated caves, that your back just gives out. It's like, well, yeah, maybe let's just try a different saddle. Because like I mentioned before we started, you don't know what you don't know. And try it. And I'm also a big fan, like people will be like, well, let's bring in all 3 of my bikes and let's do them. I'm like, no, let's do one bike. Let's proof of concept. Let's see if this works. Let's change the saddle. We've got these 2 other bikes. If you absolutely hate what I've done for you, we can go back. Maybe your undercarriage has molded perfectly to this. And, there is a percentage of people, there are people who maybe will do well with this.
Well, and there has to be, like, people love the Serrano or whichever bike saddle we're talking about. So as you said, like some people just either can deal with it or their body is that's the shape of it. And it does actually work. Like, I think we can be open to that possibility.
Yep. And there are people who can't load their sit bones. There are nerves, right? Or the rami. Some people don't like to, they could have, maybe they're a very, very lean person and they have no, musculature or fat mass under there, and it just grinds into them. So it's like there's a way to disperse. It's a technique for dispersing pressure for sure.
Yeah. Now there has been a lot of change. I did want to sort of get your opinion. I didn't tell you this beforehand, but with Trek and there's new, I guess Specialized also has done these sort of more aggressive saddles. I'm blanking on what Specialized is. What's that saddle called? It doesn't matter. We're Trek family here. That's the one, the power saddle. So, and that family and Bontragers are these aggressive saddles. So in the last, let's say 5 years, those saddles have really come along and I think changed things. Would you agree with that statement? Like that's like, there's been a change since the Serrano days or the previous days.
They're trying hard.
Which is going in this direction. We're like recognizing people are doing Unbound for 200 miles and people are doing these aggressive things. People of all different sizes and shapes are doing these things. So that is like a response where there are new options that weren't prevalent 20 years ago when I started riding seriously, maybe, that we could be open to trying. As you say, you don't know what you don't know because you're still using the 20-year-old saddle because it was what you had. We got riding, we started, but there are other options now as well.
There are many options.
Yeah. And what do you think about this? This is the actual curved ball I was going to show you. I saw that Trek now has these 3D printed saddles that are supposed to move a bit with your body. Do you have feelings on those, or can you comment? We can skip this out.
No, I've actually got it on my Madone on the rollers, and I'm testing it out.
I like the concept. They said like it's rather than having a cover, like pretty much every saddle would have like some sort of cover over the padding or over the material, and so now it's all this 3D matrix. It's just like one piece, and so there's a bit more breathability. It seemed to make sense. So when I was taking in my Trek Kool-Aid and trying to like see about this.
Did you ride the old Aeolus?
Yep.
Yeah, so I'd say bigger than the 3D printing. I honestly could care less about 3D printing. I feel like it's
Pretty fancy sounding.
It's a whiz bang thing. Yeah, it's like, ooh, it's the shape. They've changed the shape. Okay. So when we back onto the curvature and the width of the saddle, they've narrowed that. So what we would find is people would be pushed forward onto the nose because their hamstring would run into the edge of the saddle. And that was with the Verse as well. I at one point really liked their Verse saddle, but I found if I got people off the nose, there was a decent percentage of people that just sort of the inner thigh would just jam in, and it would actually create almost like a nervy tendon feeling. Yeah. And so they were pushed forward onto the nose. So the curve and the curve in this manner and the width of the rear end is really critical as well. And they've narrowed that out for the Aeolus. They've changed the shape of the new Aeolus and then also added the 3D printing.
Okay. Yeah, and
which for gravel, the 3D printing sounds actually pretty great for me.
Why so?
Just a little bit of, like I said, it moves the top and the bottom. There's a little, right? That just little bit of, maybe vibration damping or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what you actually, I think, just sold me more on this thing, despite me only buying Trek stuff anyhow, was the way you described sort of just that hamstring and being pushed forward. That's how I would describe my experience with saddles a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. And I always thought maybe this is like a narrowness or like the width of the saddle isn't right. But the way you described that, I'm almost wondering.
The curve and the width is maybe not right?
Yeah.
And you're not exactly.
What about chafing? Would you get like chafing? No, I'm not. Would you get chafing like in the butt cheek or like towards the hamstring, or what would that present like if someone had that? Do you think?
If you're so what I find with people is if you're dedicated to not sitting on your soft tissue, right? Like say you feel the need to move forward to get away from that sort of like proximal hamstring, like butting into it. Yep. And you're so sensitive to that, you move to the nose. That just ends up being overloading your hands a lot, overloading your feet, shoulder, neck pain, and likely soft tissue discomfort.
I think you've just described me pretty much.
Yeah.
That's it. So okay, so I'll get that on order here.
Yeah. So, and then if you are so against soft tissue pressure, so I mentioned before we got on that, like, I can't sit on my soft tissue. It's just like, it's like the worst thing to me. Yeah. I will deal with being back and getting that rubbing and disturbance. And yeah, that would end up leaning. What you see with a lot of people is they shift their entire body off the saddle. So let's just be broad and say like left tuberosity sits on top, right falls off the edge.
Oh,
you
interesting.
Can't your whole body off. So basically, and then you rotate your pelvis. So you rotate, shift, and drop.
Oh, interesting. So when you see someone like their chamois isn't aligned with their saddle, I always think that maybe like their saddle's too high, but you're saying they might actually just be trying to find like a more comfortable spot on the saddle for their body.
It also could be height.
Oh, okay.
It also could be they really love their 15-year-old Segoy shorts, and the chamois actually can't live under their butt anymore, right? Because it's like you're wearing a garbage bag with a chamois, and it just shifts all over the place. But yeah, saddle height can pull you to the side, 100%. But
it's another option, and I hadn't thought of that. That's
saddle shape. You will be in an avoidance technique.
Wow, and you could see, okay, now someone's rotated, shifted to the side, so now it's like they're either going to end up with like a hamstring thing on one side or like a low back, torso, neck pain from being twisted. Like you could just see this go right up, and it's like, well, why would I bother with a BikeFit or a new saddle? This sounds expensive, and it's like, well, it's expensive going to physio for this twisted torso neck pain thing too.
Yep, I know. What's his name? Kelly Starrett. He had a really good saying, which is he's like, all of this is just to keep you training. If you can't, if your whole goal is to be fast, you need a consistent 52 weeks. And if you're not doing the basic thing, which is, trying to align your body on a perfectly symmetrical object, invariably at some point in 52 weeks or 104 or whatever it is, you'll be down with an injury. And it's just like, well, that's just wasted time. And why waste that time, right? It's the consistency, it's stacking the blocks, it's doing these blocks over and over, and then taking your proper rest time. It's just a basic part of cycling, being square on a bike.
I wanted to make sure we got it into you. You had an interesting thought that and I love it. It strokes my ego a little bit too, so maybe that's why I like it. But you had mentioned that you think that there's almost like a selection, and I'm very interested in like youth development and how we do talent selection. So this is very neat. That you said you suspect that like the saddle and how adaptive someone is to their saddle, or the shape of their body, their shape of their pelvis, I should even say, might actually determine how successful they are early. Because if you're not comfortable and you can't stay on your bike, or you're not comfortable and you can't produce power, then you're not going to be as successful. Whereas someone like myself, I always joke that like I can just deal with whatever, a crooked saddle, and I just keep going. You said that you were more like Princess and the Pea, not to criticize you, but
No, 100%
you're in the job you are for a reason. Like you wanted it to be perfect and good and comfortable. And so, but then that can mean that you don't persist, or you don't continue, or whatever different scenarios. So do you want to take us, what did I miss there as I tried to explain?
No, I mean, I love that you said, it it strokes the ego, but now I'm going to take it down, which is I'm going to say you were successful in spite of yourself, right? Like it's the people who can get away with it. Yeah, they succeed. I think this is just a personal opinion, having watched people. Could it possibly be better? Yeah, I think so. So a lot of my clients are just like, we're just endurance cyclists who love to go out for a ride with our friends. So there's really no loss in trying to be more comfortable. When we come to, you've got a finite amount of time, and professional cycling is like, now we're plucking them up from like 18, 17. It's like hockey. If you're not a winner by 16, it's like, well, you're done. You're dead to me. So I understand the fear of change at that thing. But the reality is we're volume, and 20 to 30 hours a week of discomfort. I just can't see a world where that's worth it.
Yeah. Well, and I lament, as you look back and regret or lament, that like I was pretty good, but I also like missed doing most of the like big milestone stuff by like percentages or like fractions of a percent. And it's like, well, was it because your handlebars were crooked and your saddle was crooked, or not quite at the right height, that you got an extra 10 watts, or whatever the scenario is? Or was I crashing for any of those reasons? That then again, like there's just all this stuff where it's like, yes, I was great because that stuff didn't like stop me from training, or stop me from carrying on, or distracted me. But then it's also like, one BikeFit could have been like, this is the stuff that haunts you at night, or haunts me at night at least. It's like, did that cost me going to Worlds or something like that, right? And so that's now, as a coach, I try and guide people towards these other aspects, other than strictly like, what is your FTP? It's like, well, this is the mechanical or biomechanical is like one of the owls. This is, we both love Dan John, and the owls is something that I try and bring into people's vernacular. Is like, when we're saying we have a goal, like what are all the owls, mechanical, tactical, technical, what are all these things that we can do in addition to physiological, or whatever you want to call your FTP?
Yeah. And you, I bet, I mean, what's our buzzword for now? Like durability, right? Like, so and this is how I see the saddle over time is, okay, so you rotate forward, you sit on your soft tissue. And, I've seen pictures and video of you riding. Haha, I'm creepy. But like, you look good. You look solid. But do you look like that 4 hours in? Or have you created a posterior tilt in your pelvis to avoid that soft tissue? And then you're getting, a lot more lumbar flexion, and then you're reaching out, and then your upper back and your neck are hurting. And you've done all of this because you think the saddle's good, but you can only tolerate, and to step back, I'm not promoting that you like rotate your pelvis anterior and create extension in your lower back. We're not saying that. Let's just say ribs over pelvis, right? Like a cylinder. That's how you ride to start. But then does that cylinder start to bow out and away? Because inevitably you and Jody going out for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours on the gravel, you're getting jackhammered in your undercarriage. And I can see you have not gone to Thunderbirds in a 2.1 yet. So you're not living the good life yet. But like you're just getting jackhammered from below. And then lo and behold, your pelvis just starts to rotate away, away, away. And it's like that changes your preferred position. And maybe I don't like to fit in terms of like, I'm going to give you more power or anything like that.
No.
I think it's hour one, and hopefully whatever is a normal amount for you. So say your target goal is 4 hours. I want your position at hour 1 and 4 to be fairly similar. If you went for an 8-hour sojourn, you're probably going to look like garbage at 7 and 8 because you train 2 hours regularly.
That's right.
Which I'm sure you communicate to your athletes all the time.
Yeah, there is going to be a bit of that, but it is a good feeling. I did do a couple long rides this year, like more bike packing, and it is a good feeling to be like, yeah, that wasn't a limiter today. That like by the end I was just chafed and like having to do the coast and like, pedal stroke. But what did come to mind is I've gravitated towards standing, which makes sense with like XCO and being a tinier person. Like I stand a lot to climb, and now I'm like, I wonder how much of that though is also working around, my body just solving like, okay, this saddle is only so good for so long. It's not comfortable sitting for longer. So I wonder how much of that was like over years and years and years. And I can do it no problem. Like I survived this far, but I wonder like how much of that was an adaptive response to saddle discomfort, where then again, at some point, as you say, there's an efficiency and endurance. Why do I love only riding 90 minutes is all of this, like some of like built up, this is a therapy session we've come into now, an adaptive response to try and avoid saddle discomfort.
Yeah. It's chicken egg, right? Like and we're really good at justifying everything we do.
Oh yeah. I have a podcast about that.
I know. And it's like none of it is like there's nothing normal about sitting on a bike, right? You guys interviewed Phil Cavell, right? Was that
we did? Yeah.
I love that man.
I want to go. We could go to a trip together to London and visit him.
I would love to.
Okay.
He taught one of
guys trip.
He taught one of the courses that Trek put on, and I got to meet him, and it was fantastic. He's just dry, humorous, amazing. But like he pointed out, Victorian era contraption that really, factors changing some stuff now, but blah, blah, blah. Like we really haven't changed drastically. And, we're bipedal. We're meant to walk. We're not really meant to drop our pelvis in something and then have our legs paw at the air. That's a really weird concept. And so it's one of those things, it's just like, it's not normal. So we probably need some help. It's a very interesting thing. And some people like you, they just adapt better. Or you had great guidance.
Well, the other place I wanted to take you, because you did mention sort of like our younger cyclists, like you are correct that like I would say like the volume expectations are higher than when I started. And there's multi-factors there. There's as you say, the Pro Tour thing that's when you're 16, you have to sign your Pro Tour contract. This isn't true, by the way, if parents are listening. There's lots of ways to get there. But we have that. And then the other difference I see, which we can, as older guys, we can lament about this, but it is just the reality, is that like when I started, my parents let us go out into the Dufferin County Forest near my best friend's house, and we were lucky that Mansfield Outdoor Center opened at that time, and they literally just let us go for 3 and 4 hours into the forest, and we would mountain bike, and we didn't even call it training, but we would stop and we would build jumps, and then we'd like ride around. But like gradually it became more and more riding, and we explored road, but there was no parents at any point. There was no structure, there was no whatever, and so the bike saddle probably didn't really matter that much because we were taking breaks and it wasn't that intense. We certainly weren't sitting on indoor trainers. But now when I work with young athletes, indoor trainers are the main discipline. Like that's maybe the quote we can pull here. Is
that's actually the best thing I've heard. Yeah. I mean, it's bad, but it's good.
Yeah, and I that's what the kid can train more because it doesn't require the parents and they don't have to go outside on their own. And that's the world I guess we live in now. But that to me changes why they would come to see you. Is like I didn't need to really come. I would have loved to meet you at that point, but the bike fit didn't matter so much when we were just like cruising around the forest, and like we probably were dropping our saddle all the time to do jumps and trials stuff and North Shore stuff, right? So I guess I give you that story as like this esports is the main discipline that most young athletes are pursuing, like are using.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, I struggle all the time. I'm hypercritical of bike fitting in general, right? Because I've always sort of thought it's like, great, you're outside riding, and now I'm strapping you to this trainer, and it's so not what it is. But here's the deal. We're spending half our year on the trainer now.
It's less and less true.
So there are fits that, like, yeah, if you're indoors all the time, this is gold now. Because now the bike isn't moving under you. You're moving over the bike, and all of the issues, high saddle, bad saddle, whatever, asymmetries, you name it, are being amplified by this locked thing. Mm-hmm. The things we get away with outside are, the bike moves. The bike moves. It's great. We're super adaptable. I will say, like, and you might see this with your athletes, is they spend a whole season outside. Say they don't ride inside during the season, and then they get into the training in the winter, and lo and behold, their right patella all of a sudden starts acting up. And inevitably, you're like, "Yep, okay, knee problem, here it comes." And they're fixed in space now. So yeah, more than anything, like if you're a trainer athlete, I think it's even more critical.
Yeah,
and it's more relevant.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I did a presentation last night for our local cycling club just for winter training. And one of the things I did is I said, winter cycling training, like what do you think, like when I say that, what comes to mind? What picture or word comes to mind? What do you think like one of the first one or two words would have been? Like
Zwift.
Oh, exactly. So Zwift, trainer. Now, if I asked you, I know everyone at that Speed River bike store, because you all just fought a war to have bike lanes in the winter plowed, which you should look that up because the good folks at Speed River did a good fight there to keep the bike lanes open. Years ago, I think you would have pictured like person with icicles on their face, like hard man or hard person. I don't know, studded tires, fenders. Like these would have been things that you might have been thinking about, but like no one. Like not even fat bike got mentioned, which I found odd, right? But that's what everyone's mind immediately went to, which isn't wrong. I get why that's the case, but I think this idea of like we can ride outside in the winter is less and less. Especially this is like a masters group, like it is a road cycling group, so it is a little select group. But I sort of predicted that, but also found it interesting that like like indoor esport is like a big part of cycling now.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's not like I have inside ride rollers. I don't ride a fixed rear end trainer. I don't.
Yeah, it didn't come up, the rollers. I forgot to actually mention it, which like kept me up all at night that I didn't mention rollers. But yeah, that's like a great thing that I wish more people would use. I have a couple athletes that still keep it in.
Yeah, if you have the space, we have a good friend who he has, he's very privileged to have two identical bikes. One is on the fixed rear wheel, or not fixed rear wheel, sorry, wheel off.
No, what a setup.
Yeah, and one is on inside ride.
Amazing.
And so he'll do his intervals, his constrained intervals on the fixed trainer. And then if it's like tempo zone 2, whatever, he just hops off, sits on the inside ride rollers and rides. And it moves more. It's not real. It's not outside, but it's more like a bike.
I would say like I use it I would like to use it more as an intake. So I'll make a note for myself here, but I would say that's like can you do this is like a good screen, just like how, like when you go out and biking, like you're right. It's not like exactly the same as biking, but I would say it relates to a lot of situations, like, especially if you're into gravel and any like mud sliding. But yeah, I would say it's like if someone was like, how do I practice skills in the winter? It would be like, well,
ride rollers.
No, on rollers. Like you don't have to do it that much, but like, can you do, I usually even like people to do like, can you stop and start 10 times in under, I don't know what the time would be, but 2 minutes, say, can you get going? And like, I don't even care. Once you get going, like you're riding a bike, you're good. But it's that stopping and starting is like, I don't know, I think a pretty cool thing to be able to practice in your basement. Yeah.
And just like you said, though, going outside. I mean, like I always think like, do I ride bikes to ride bikes? Or do I ride bikes to go outside? Like that's more where I'm at, where it's like, I went out and took pictures of birds yesterday, but I rode my bike to do it. I went for like a 20K ride through our local trails over to the conservation area. And it's just like, it's being outside. But it also happened that, I mean, like it's just, what was it? Zonhoven? I can't remember which one, which cross race with the, oh my God, the crashes. But like riding in the snow is often like that, right? Like it's just, you're trying to stick a rut or a line and it's just so much fun. I'm only going 10K an hour, but like I can feel my entire body integrating with the bike and I'm developing, and I'm a mediocre bike handler. And even then it's like, it's satisfying and it's joy and it's fun. Yeah, I would say I'm maybe not getting the fitness gains. But also,
Well, and I always push back with that, like the owls or the like fitness being like how well you fit to the goal, right? Like it's not just the watts, the FTP. It's also can you, when your race gets in cyclocross or whatever the event you're going to do, Paris to Ancaster, when you're sliding sideways down the hill, have you experienced that, or do you grab all the brakes and fall on your face and and then you've never fallen recently? Like I get there's a risk with riding outdoors for sure, but yeah, I think
we're very lucky. Like,
yeah,
it's just
you're not lucky. You worked for that.
Well, I'm also very close to trails that are typically like people tromp down, so we can just go out and ride. It's a very it's great. But yeah, in terms of that, like again, like I ride. I don't know if you remember the old. It was a fully rigid Stash plus bike, the teal one.
No, that's what we have for Molly's father. That's what we got him.
Never got rid of it. That's my winter bike, studded tires. And it's just like, I have no problems with it. It's upright enough. It's like, I'm sort of like you with that. I could put any saddle I want on it. It's just generic and it works. And I go out and I can log miles and it's phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah. I often tell people that too. Like I'll just wear like my snowsuit or like normal clothes and just go burn around town. And sometimes I have to walk because there's like, it's unplowed.
That's
and
good. Walking is good.
Dismounting and everything else, right? So anyhow, a couple more questions here to wrap up. Some more, I don't know if the rapid fire with either of us is probably a tough thing, but we'll see how we do. We have covered this a little bit, but let me ask you more specifically. We did get the question, and I said I would save it for you. But when to replace my bike saddle? So I know in running shoes, there's some of these rules which most people push back against. Like, you run 200 miles, you should replace your shoes or something like that.
Right.
And then a lot of people say, well, if you're not getting knee pain or whatever, just keep running in your shoes. Now, do you have a rule of thumb or a feeling about that sort of whole concept around like when to replace a saddle?
I have a whole thing. I work with some triathletes and junior athletes and stuff like that. And it's just like, a lot of people don't look at their bike, right? And so inspect your bike regularly. Like put it in your trainer, hopefully it's level, right? Side to side, forward to aft, like hopefully. And then just look at your saddle. And you'd be surprised the amount of times, primarily I think it's the right side would be dropped.
From mounting.
Because we just overload our rights. Remember my rotation drop. A lot of people run a high saddle. You run a high saddle, you're going to drop one hip in. And say you're a 10-hour a week athlete, so 500 hours in the year, 1,000 hours over 2 years, you're just going to bend that rail. And so your whole saddle will be off. And there's back and forth on this. Like you've custom made this saddle now to fit you.
Yeah.
So to change it might cause some problems. But when we look at it, it's like, oh wow, that's pointing something out. Maybe it's the wrong saddle, maybe it's the wrong height, maybe it's the one. So that point is, it's not necessarily about just replacing the saddle for the sake of the saddle. You're looking at it, it's twisted and bent. Maybe think about getting a BikeFit and finding the right saddle in the right position. Mm-hmm. That would be the big one. If you're a higher volume, let's just say 300 to 500 hours a year. Let's say somewhere in there, you'll have athletes that are way more than that. 2 years, 3 years. I mean, they take a lot of beating. They're made of foam most of the time. The foam degrades. If you flip your saddle over, let's choose one of our favorite, the old Montrose. Remember the old Montrose saddle?
Yeah, I have one.
It had cuts in the plastic, and then there was gel that could sort of slightly squish through. I would see saddles where all those cuts were cracked and the gel was just pouring through. And so you couldn't see that the saddle was quote unquote broken, but the second you loaded it, their right tuberosity would just go,
Oh,
and then their whole body would just be rotated. And then they've created this like lateral, like sort of compression of the left side and extension of the right side, right? Mm-hmm. So it's situational. Just note your equipment.
I like that too. So maybe when someone's on their trainer, you could even, so yes, give it a visual inspection from the side and from the back. Does anything look like bent or off? Some of that could be adjustment, right? The number of people I see who the saddle's just like not straight and the seat post is off, or they've like landed on the back of the saddle and the nose is pointed up. Would you say, maybe that's a quick question, like would the nose ever be pointed up versus like level?
There are, I'm not going to say there's never. There are people who feel, so I mean, there's different saddles, right? So if you look at the Aeolus, it's really scooped. Yeah. If I like SMP saddles. If you pointed an SMP up and rotated your pelvis, you would basically jam your pubic bone into what we call the beak, right? I call it the beak of the saddle. Probably not going to be comfortable. But an Aeolus, almost like if you felt you were falling off, some people do end up doing that. Flat saddles in the past, people would tilt the nose up because they felt like they were falling forward. Right. I generally, if you have to tilt the nose up, there's probably something else happening. But there are people, there are positions, there are bikes where it could be a tool. Rare, but possible.
Okay, next one. This is sort of a Trek Ed, but not a Trek Ed. But I am seeing a trend now that finally, I told you I've not been super happy in my feet and my shoes for probably my whole career. It's just little rub spots, right? And you say, like, again, I think I just accepted that like cycling shoes are narrow. That's the nature of these things. Like it's sort of a weird thing to do to like hammer your feet into like pedals all day. And so it's uncomfortable at some point. But these newest Trek shoes are, as I understand, they've pushed back the wide spot and made the wide spot a little wider. And I have found just amazing, just like so good. My toes feel like they have all the room. I haven't had it rub, like some of these, was that a corn or a blister or like whatever I have on the side there is like sort of receding a little bit, which is nice. So I've been really happy. So as far as shoes, is there any other sort of things that people should be thinking about with shoes when they're thinking about bike fit and comfort?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest one is, I'm sure you've seen it online and people share it on Instagram and stuff. The simplest thing is you take the insole out, you put your foot on the insole. If your foot overflows the insole,
okay,
your shoe, the forefoot, is probably too narrow. It's going to compress unless it has a super stretchy fabric that allows it to overflow. But then your foot is not actually on the last. It's like sort of suspended in space. So you'll get those hot spots, you'll get those things. The other one is to look at the shape of your toes. Like some people have I'm looking at my feet, like some people I have first, second toe are even in length. Some people have like a really long first toe and it trails away really quickly. Some people have a third toe that is longer, right? So it pyramids almost. The new Trek shoes are sort of like a squared off toe box. So they will represent more foot shapes. But the classic is we call it the Italian dress shoe, right? It points to the big toe. And what it ends up doing a lot of the time is smashing your fifth and fourth toe and compressing the fifth metatarsal in and just sort of like squishing down your foot. Yeah. Which inevitably, like, that's going to be intolerable at a point.
Yeah, and the new shoe, I guess, has like they call it MetNet, but it's a little more flexy. It doesn't like bear down so much on the top of the foot. And I think that's been a piece for me as well, as just, as you say, around that fifth toe, that it's not getting so compressed. So you had said to me that like you don't really want your foot to get like compressed. It's not like your bike shorts or something like a compression stocking where it's compressing. Like you want your foot supported, but it doesn't necessarily need to make your foot a ton smaller than your foot already is.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of like, if you look at how, like if I push down, metatarsal spread, like the foot should be able to spread and come back. And almost like the unloading and the loading we talked about with the saddle, right? Where it's like perfuses and doesn't perfuse. Like the forefoot the cleat is under, let's say it's just back of the first met head, and you're driving into it. Now, it's not walking, it's not running, but we're still, as we drive, we're going to see the forefoot want to splay a little bit. And then as it unweights, when we come through the recovery phase, theoretically, it unweights a little bit and it retracts, right? And then it spreads and retracts. But if we are just in the compressed phase all the time and your foot's trying to spread out and it's just smashing into the sides, we'll get a lot of the lateral portion of the foot. So like you'll see a lot of people say they're someone who loves to live, in a really laterally loaded, like supine position all the time. Their foot is always rolled out. Those people we see when they get into cycling shoes get a lot of discomfort on the outer edge of their foot. Because
they might call themselves like a high arch person then? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there's a high, you don't get I don't see a ton of high arch people who like obviously overpronate and collapse in, right? If we have a really rigid high arch. Right. Yeah, and they sort of, you'll see like bowed tibia. I was really into Olympic lifting, right? It's like you always see the best Olympic lifters have
100%
really bowed tibia. And then you get someone like that, you put them on a bike, they load the outside of the foot more.
I see.
And then you've got a shoe that's super narrow. And so it's like it's pushing into the outside all the time. There's a whole bunch of other things you can do, but the bare minimum is you need to look at the width of the foot and make sure that it's just like there's enough room in there. We don't want it to be slipper, like we don't want it vague and floating.
Right. Supported. But that person, would you look at a bigger insole, like an appropriate insole for that type of foot then? Is that like what you mean as far as like supporting that type of body, I guess?
Well, if you have a high rigid arch, do you really need, you don't need a supportive insole. I like the thought of something, I like so I've said this to every fit person who's ever come in, so if anyone's listening to this, they'll laugh at me now. But the only thing I really take from my environmental science education, so I have a soil science degree, excellent for bike fitting, is the solution to pollution is dilution, right? So I always look at, even if we have something suboptimal at the foot, if I can increase the amount of surface area contact, so it's not just like your first met head is just pinpoint driving into the shoe, but I can get behind it and into the arch a bit, not as a primary loading thing, but as something that disperses that pressure, we can get away with a little bit more. So we have G8 insoles have a really flexible high dome arch. And it sits there against your foot and says, here's something, right? It's not pushing the foot necessarily. I don't know enough. I'm not a podiatrist or a chiroprod, right? I'm not going to put something in and give you this song and dance about it correcting your foot. But it's something that just says to your foot, because it's locked in a really weird, unnatural place, hey, there's some support here. You can load a little bit differently now, right? That's what I love for insoles. It's not like a post. It's a surface increase technique, maybe. So you can't have it punch into someone, right? It just needs to be lightly guiding under the arch, I find.
Yeah, and I think fits with this overall topic today of just sort of if you're having pain, especially this time of year, this would be a great time to sort of experiment and maybe go in and consult with someone like yourself to do that. Now, I thought maybe to wrap up, is there something maybe that is the wrap up, but is there a sort of a takeaway you can leave people with here when we're talking specific to that idea of numbness that you sort of came to me with and this sort of proliferation of numbness and accepting it? Is there sort of a takeaway you can leave us with as far as saddle pain and numbness?
Yeah, I think the thing is the number one is it doesn't have to be that way. And anyone who gives you advice that that's part of the game, they're wrong. Just don't take their advice anymore. It's bad advice. If you are fortunate enough to have a coach like yourself and you're not communicating discomfort on the bike, as an athlete, you're your number one advocate. Let them know. And then a lot of the time, your coach, and it doesn't have to be me, it could be a variety of wonderful fitters in the world. Your coach probably has someone they know, or maybe they fit. Get your fit checked. Low back pain shouldn't be acceptable. Numbness shouldn't be acceptable. Overloading your hands shouldn't be acceptable. A lot of those things come from a saddle. So it's don't just accept it because, the 70-year-old Italian guy on your group ride said, your junk falling asleep is normal. It's part of it. Suck it up. Like that's not how it has to be. There's hundreds of saddle options out there.
Yeah. Excellent. I love it. Great takeaway. This has been a wide-ranging talk. It's actually changed my thinking on a few things. I'm ordering a lot more Trek parts, which I always like when that Molly will be upset with me when the bill comes. But there you go.
Get the narrowest aeolus. That's what I'm just because I'm not a wide human. That doesn't dictate your pelvic width, but I would go with, like we talked about, hamstring, proximal hamstring and stuff like that. I would try the narrowest version to start.
Okay. Yeah. I'll take that advice. Awesome. Thanks, Tim. We'll have you on again soon.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Consummate Athlete podcast. If you want to hear more training, racing, and endurance sport advice, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and leave us a rating and review. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at consummateathlete.com for a weekly dose of inspiration and advice straight to your inbox.